Hello everyone, my name is Melanie Rupp and I'm the Director of Loans and Advisory Services with Women's Enterprise Center working out of the Vancouver office. Hang on, I'll just see if I get the next slide up. If there's a topic you'd like us to consider for a future forum, please be sure to complete our follow-up survey and share your ideas. I'll tell you just a little bit about Women's Enterprise Center. Women's Enterprise Center is a nonprofit organization devoted to helping BC women start, lead, and grow their own business. Our full range of services include business loans up to $150,000 with access to an additional $100,000 through a new partnership with BDC. We also provide business advice, skills training, mentoring, resources, and a supportive community to help women entrepreneurs realize their business potential. We do this from our 3 offices located in Kelowna, Vancouver, and Victoria. Our passion is to empower women entrepreneurs to their business success. We're funded by the federal government through Western Economic Diversification and are part of the Women's Enterprise Initiative, which includes similar organizations in Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba. You can learn more on our website at wec.ca. So now on to today's session. Export Navigator Program for Women Entrepreneurs. To answer your questions this morning, we're excited to have our 2 panelists. Allison Boulton is the Program Manager for Export Navigator, and Rita Kim is Women Enterprise Center's Specialty Advisor for Export Navigator. Let's start with each of the panelists giving a brief overview of their background and the work they do with Export Navigator. Allison, would you like to go first?
Good morning, this is Allison and thank you for having us. My name is Allison Boulton and my background is in exporting wine actually. So one of the tricky things is when you're selling wine around the world, but I've been in that for about 20 years. I've also worked and studied abroad in Indonesia and China and the Middle East. And so now I've returned to Canada and quite excited to be running the Export Navigator program for the province.
Great. Well, sounds like you have the perfect background, Allison. Thank you. Rita, over to you.
Thank you, Melanie. Great to be here today with Allison, yourself, Carrie Lee, and everyone on the call. Welcome. I've been working in business and finance for over 20 years, running both our own businesses as well as helping others while working in the finance sector. As an export navigator, I have the opportunity to work with businesses in all stages of export, from those that are just thinking about it to those that are looking to conquer new markets for export. A typical session with an export navigator includes going through, what are your updates? What are some of the challenges, some brainstorming, and then following up with resources or connections. Think of it as free coaching, basically, where you have a chance to let it out, sort out strategies. It's not just me you get access to, it's the whole team across BC. It's quite brilliant, actually. Thank you.
That's great, Rita. You've certainly piqued our interest with free coaching. So let's learn more about Export Navigator. Let's start with the first question. Maybe Allison, you can start with how do you define export for us, please?
Exporting is usually defined quite simply as selling your products or your services outside of your home market. With Export Navigator, that is to next door to Alberta, that could be down south to Washington State, or that can be over to France or to Japan. So it's really selling your products or your services outside of your home market and really finding new customers and a way of growing your business. And a bit about the advantages. I'm going to speak to the slide and ensure the folks that don't see the slide also know that we encourage exporting really quite simply as a way to build resiliency and sustainability into your business. And that happens by diversifying your markets. You don't want just one client. That's pretty scary if they change their mind. And it's the same way with geographies. You don't just want one market. You want to be able to survive the ebbs and the flows of different markets. So you want to diversify your market to build business resiliency. And that can also actually lead to innovation in your service offering or the different types of products or sizes or flavors you might export. And then you can learn about that from needing it for Korea, and then you bring it back home and sell it to your domestic customers as well.
Wow, sounds like a great strategy to scale and grow a company. Rita, I wonder if you might talk a little bit about how clients feel when they start talking to you. This sounds very scary.
Oh, yes, I'll definitely agree with that. Scary is one word. The other word I like to use is risks. So there's a lot of risks involved in business, and even more so in exporting. So some of the things that we get to talk about are the various types of risks involved, which is, for example, political risk, financial risk, product risk, supply chain risk, and so on. So those are some of the initial discussions that we start walking through, and then we start moving through the pathway. So kind of leave that there for now.
Right, okay, so sounds like Export Navigator Program then is a program that can help mitigate the risks and work through those risks. So how does the Export Navigator Program work, Allison?
The Export Navigator Program works in that it is really designed to be a one-on-one personalized service for businesses in BC. And the program goals are, again, to survive those economic challenges by growing your market. And we really want to let people know that exporting isn't going to happen overnight. So we are there for the long term, working with businesses through the pathway Rita mentioned, step by step. And we really make sure it's a personalized service, it's a confidential service, and we partner you with an advisor, either based on your geographical reason or if you're a women-owned business, so with a women's specialty advisor, to make sure you get that support that's really tailored to your business.
Well, that sounds great. Personalized, confidential, and tailored to our business. So an ideal client, what's the typical client profile of business owners in the program?
So typical profile is beautifully easy in that we take businesses of all sizes. 1 to 4 employees is about 60% of our clients. We take businesses in all sectors. We have agri-food, we have engineering companies, we have consumer products, we have clothing, and we also work with clients at all stages of their exporting journey. Whether you're stepping on this webinar today just to kind of get an idea for it, maybe you received an email from someone in Germany inquiring about your product, maybe you're already selling across Canada and you're ready to take that move into the United States. We work with, the beautiful thing is, clients of all sizes, all sectors and stages. Export Navigator works with clients across the province. We don't have coverage in Greater Victoria or the Lower Mainland. However, I know that the Women's Enterprise Center has their own advisors there as well.
Yes, for sure. Women's Enterprise Center can help with those businesses in those markets. You didn't mention service businesses. Could they also participate in this program?
Absolutely. We have service businesses from education to tourism, engineering firms. We have a lot of service providers that work with our very large BC natural resources industry. So we have people that are specialized in the forestry industry. And so they work with BC forestry clients, but then they also say, there's a lot of forestry in South America. I'm going to then see if they are interested in my services as well. And really work with the clients to say, okay, what's your ideal client here? Who have you had success with? Let's see where in the world or where in the United States are those, where are you going to find similar customers to be able to grow your business and find buyers of your service?
Wow, sounds like a lot of in-depth work and detail. So how much time does this program take in terms of hours a week or in a month to complete the program?
That is a question that is pretty much not possible to answer. And the reason is because it's, as with every business and every journey, it's going to depend on the time. Our tourism businesses are ramping up right now, not to welcome guests, but to find guests for next year. So the tourism businesses are really busy right now doing their market research, preparing for trade shows. The tourism businesses that are welcoming skiers and snowboarders, we're not going to talk to them again until June. So it really, ramps up, ramps down, depending on your seasonality. Also depending what you're prepping to do. Everyone that's attended a trade show knows that those, you start planning months in advance, but those couple of weeks and those couple of days before are very intense. So Rita, I know that you've talked to clients a bit about this, and it depends, as I said, what stage you're at, but also what you're preparing to do and how big the challenge is, and of course always how big your team is too.
Yeah, what's been your experience working directly with clients, Rita?
Yeah, no, great question. And Allison, you made me chuckle with your comment of I'm not answering the questions. So fantastic. We get to bug Melanie a bit today. To be quite frank, the 4 stages that we go through with our Export Navigator workbook, everybody starts in whatever stage they're in. It all depends on where you're sitting at. And then you graduate through each stage at your own pace. There's no defined structure here or timeline. It's just simply going through the work to understand export and the risks involved. So just going back to the risks that I mentioned earlier, we have a chance to use the time together, use a great workbook to identify, assess, and manage the risks. So we go through the pathway through a step-by-step manner. You graduate through the stages. As you graduate, more introductions or resources are provided. The idea is you just keep working hard and go through each stage at your pace. We go as hard and fast as you do, and we leave that pace up to you. So some of our clients that I've worked with are just starting the whole process, and some of them have graduated to the second stage, all within a matter of 30 days, and others it's going to take a little bit longer because the research and or understanding and or the busy seasonality of their business right now is kind of getting in the way of that. So it really is up to the businesses.
And how much, at what time they have available and where they're at in their business. So we'll come back and talk a little bit more about the export pathway in a moment. I wanted to focus on this workbook. How does the workbook help the client? What do they do with that workbook?
The workbook is designed to give businesses some structure, and it provides the pathway to say, don't worry, you're not on your own, you're not in the dark, we've got these steps that you're going to follow. So you know that once you accomplish something, you're going to keep moving, and we just guide you along that. So it provides that bit of structure, takes away the unknown, but it also can help clients see that, it doesn't need to be overwhelming. If you don't want to know what happens in the next stage, you don't need to read ahead. It's okay. Focus on what you're doing now. So it just is there to provide some structure, to make you ask some questions that might not generally pop into your head. We want to dig into that market research to make sure you're choosing those markets right, to make sure you're pricing your product or service correctly, to consider the different types of free trade agreements that we can take advantage of, and to really walk through that process and try and flush out all those cobwebs that might be there and ask questions that, quite frankly, you didn't know that you should even be asking.
Right, and is it typically the business owner who's working on this program and working through the workbook, or is it one of the team members?
Great question, in that Export Navigator is a free service. But of course, we know that nothing's really free because there's work involved behind the free. And so It is the business owner, it is the team behind the business that is doing the research, that is finding out these answers. We really want the business to learn. We want them to understand the why behind it. One example is a harmonized system code. This is a 10-digit code that you use to ship your product pretty much around the world. We don't want to just give you that code, because then if you innovate and create a new product, you're not able to find that in-house. So we want to teach you this process. And so it is definitely the business. We want to walk you along the process, but the advisor is here to advise, and with the company doing the work and really doing the learning as well.
That makes sense. And you talk about the cost, that it is a free cost. So that means the business owner and the team is investing the time to get the work done, but there's no charge for the business, the Export Navigator's support and advice.
That's correct.
Right?
That's
okay.
Totally correct. Yes.
Wow.
So
awesome.
I'm just going to chime in super quick here with the understanding, if you get stuck in trying to figure out an HS code, which is what Allison was.
The harmonized system code?
Correct. Okay. Or if you get stuck in other areas, not to worry, you can ask me. I'm okay to be here and add support as needed. So it's all good. I just won't write your export plan for you or write your business plan for you. But I am definitely here if you get stuck. And the goal is to try and help you remove some of these blocks and keep you moving forward down the pathway here.
Sounds great. Sounds great. So if an entrepreneur is thinking about exporting and has some ideas, can the Export Navigator help with research and understanding to figure out which country? Rita, maybe you were talking about the kind of support you can provide.
Yeah, I'll just chime in. Yeah, absolutely. So what I would hope is that you yourselves as the business owners have identified, potentially up to 3 that you're considering, that you've already started saying, I'm looking at these and this is why. And that would be what we call 2 of the program. It's just planning and understanding. And then again, if you get stuck or just want some specific understanding of industry and or country, I probably have access to a little bit more research than you might have. And then we can go ahead and try and get access to that and share that understanding and research with you. Save you a bit of time and, maybe pulling your hair out trying to figure that out. So.
Right. That sounds helpful. And what about other service providers? Do you, through this Export Navigator program, link into those other resources that are available for exporters?
Absolutely. So as you work hard and go through the process, if you need support with other resources or advisors or financing options, contacts, or such, we're always here. We've got the entire network behind us, and probably easier for us to navigate through that network and do the handoffs as soon as you're ready to do it. Right service providers at the right time, like we say here.
And Allison, who would be the typical service providers that would work with clients through the Export Navigator program?
Typical businesses and government organizations that we refer to could be, there are a lot in when you're doing the planning. They can be for market research. They can be an introduction to a customs broker to ensure that you know the paperwork that might be required, and also on a logistics firm on how you should pack it. For example, pretty much every country now requires that all imported products come on a heat-treated or a kiln-dried wooden pallet so that there's no bugs entering their country. So tips like that. We would also refer to government agencies such as Export Development Canada for accounts receivable insurance. If you are ready to go and you're heading off to a trade show, very possible that either the provincial or federal government has a trade office in that country. We want to make an introduction. We want to make a warm introduction to the person in Vancouver that works for the federal government that is going to cover your sector and potentially the country you're going to. And then they can learn more about your business and then introduce you to those people on the ground. So if you're going to a trade show in Singapore to sell your food product, we want to make sure that you meet both the British Columbia agri-food expert in Singapore, as well as the agri-food trade commissioner at the consulate in Singapore as well. So those are a couple of examples.
Wow.
all the way from private service providers, getting some information, and right up into in-market introductions with service providers that can help you on the ground.
Wow, that sounds great, having those referrals to those individuals and organizations at the right time. Good. Let's look a little bit at the actual program itself and the 4 stages. Maybe take us through those 4 stages and explain what happens at each stage.
Certainly. So stage 1, that could be where many of our listeners today are. They are thinking about exporting. They're just, building their awareness and figuring out, is exporting an idea for my business right time? At this time, pardon me. Stage 2, there's a lot of to-dos in stage 2 because that's where you're planning. That's where, as Rita mentioned, you're bringing the potential markets down to just 2 or 3. Where can you focus your time and your energy? How am I going to get it there? Do I have capacity? Do I have logistics? Do I need, a different type of contract for a different country? Stage 3, that is lovingly known as Allison's favorite stage, as that's when you quite often get to go on a road trip. And that's when you start testing out these theories. That's when you go to the trade show, you meet the government representatives, you meet those potential buyers. And then stage 4 is where you continue to develop those markets and grow. So as you're already in Alberta, let's see what's going on in Saskatchewan. You're in Washington, keep going down the I-5. What's going on in Oregon? What's going on in California? So you continue to grow your market. Exporting never really ends. You're always making sure you're sustaining your current markets and growing into new ones. Regulations change, ingredients change, buyers change. So it is really an ongoing process. But I can absolutely assure you that once you've shipped your first couple of orders, that typical, learning curve absolutely decreases, and it becomes something that is another process in your business and another way of having more customers. Sometimes they're just in an 8-hour different time zone.
Right. So this program is very clearly defined with step-by-step process. I'm just curious how it was developed and how many companies have been through this program to date.
The development started 3.5 years ago because British Columbia wanted to increase its export rate. We need more businesses to sell outside of BC. And right now, to date, we've had about 350 businesses that are either gone through the program, started the program, or actively within the program. And that is from across BC, from Haida Gwaii to Cranbrook, and from Duncan all the way up to Fort St. John, and pretty much everywhere in between.
Wow. Wow. And so typically when a business starts the program, how long does it take until they're exporting?
That will, of course, again, depend on the type of product, how far you're along. It's not something that's going to happen next month usually or next quarter. I like to say 18 months is a comfortable time because if you're just starting, you've got to pick those markets. And I really want to stress that of the, about 195 countries in the world, you've really got to narrow it down. And even within those countries, you've got to narrow down the regions within the country. And so that's where you spend a lot of your time, making sure that it's the right target market, that your product or your service is suitable for that market, and then finding the buyers, making the deals with the buyers, and then getting that product or service over the border. So it's similar to a sales cycle if you were selling within BC to a customer. It can be really fast if the stars align, you shake the right hand at a trade show. Other times it can be a little longer because you've got to make some tweaks to the product, you've got to get some more information, you've got to wait for a certificate of sorts. But usually it can be anywhere, from 3 to 18 months that you continue to work through this and get that product or your service provider over the border.
That seems reasonable. And Rita, what does an entrepreneur need to have ready before talking to you as an Export Navigator advisor?
To be honest, we're a low barrier entry program here. If you are thinking about exporting, give me a call. That's
Hmm,
pretty much about it. I'm trying to make this simple, folks.
that's great. That's great. And how much time do you spend with each client?
Again, this kind of comes back to each individual business and the stage they're at and how fast they're ramping up and how quickly they move things forward. So um, some of my clients I speak to every single week like clockwork, and others it's every couple of weeks. So you can take as much or as little time with me as you need.
Hmm. So that sounds like it's largely driven by the business owner and the client and how much time, what speed they want to move at.
That's pretty much it. Again, the program is here to navigate through this export pathway, so to speak. And we've
Mhm.
built a roadmap over the last 3.5 years. It's, as Allison mentioned, over 350 companies have successfully moved through it. Some of them have decided this is not for me, which we still consider a success because you've had the opportunity to walk through that process. And again, this is here as a resource for business owners here in BC to move forward with the thought process of exporting and not have it being so overwhelming. It doesn't have to
Mhm.
be anymore. You've got someone here to work with you now.
Awesome. That's great. Wow, what a resource. Free coaching, I think you said at the beginning. This is great. One of the questions I get asked all the time is what kind of funding options or programs are available to help? Are there which ones do you see most often?
The number one funding program that we end up sending clients to is the federal government, the Global Affairs Can Export Program.
Mhm.
And that is one that is open to all sectors. There are some requirements for the business. For example, you need to be incorporated. You need to, within the past 12 months, have $100,000 of revenue. And that, then of course, they want to know where are you going? What are you going to spend the money on? What are the expectations of it? We also work with, of course, Women's Enterprise Center for business financing. We
Mhm.
also have connections with the Trade Accelerator Program. And so that is a one-stop shop to get a export plan. It's an intensive 4-day workshop spread out over 6 weeks where you go in knowing you want to export and then you come out with an export plan, which is a great great opportunity, and that is also around DC. And then other funding can depend on the type of the sector you're in. There's innovation funding, there can be funding for market research, and so again, it is really tailored to the business. We work hard to not just say, here's a bunch of websites, one of them might be for you. We work hard for, say, example, when Rita working with a client to say, okay, this is what right now might be an option for you based on our conversations. So go check them out, but we bring it down from, 150 options to 5.
Great. So the Export Navigator Advisor can help define which ones are appropriate at the right time. So you're not
Absolutely.
spending all this time applying and then not being successful.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, that's been great information, and we've asked a lot of questions and a lot of good information here. I wonder, is there anything else that people should know about the program that I may not have asked the question yet?
I think we've covered a lot of it, and that, as Rita said, we are very low barrier. If you're thinking about exporting, drop
Yeah,
Rita in
I
there.
think so too.
Yeah, we work with all sectors of businesses, all sizes, from solopreneurs to 50 employees, all stages. If you've already exported a little bit, or maybe even a couple of years ago and got stumped, something happened, and you know that you enjoyed it, you know that it was a great way to diversify your balance sheet, then send Rita an email, because it's always worth that chat to see if that's something that can be of benefit for you. Some of
Great.
just a couple of, success stories from our clients. We've had clients that have developed a private label, say they're already in an export market, but they get another really strong lead. And, one of the most painful things as a business owner is to say, no, I can't sell to you. So we worked with them to go through the requirements and the production process of building a private label for that international market. So they were able to have 2 of their products in a market. We've had companies work with innovation programs and develop brand new products that they're now both selling in BC and overseas. We've had engineering firms that are now being asked to speak at global conferences about their engineering services and new project ideas. So we've just had successes from agri-food producers from Haida Gwaii getting into stores in Calgary, and then going next, we're heading to Germany. So there are all sorts of export opportunities, and we don't insist everyone goes to one market. We don't insist how fast or slow. As Rita mentioned, it's at your own pace, and we want to be your cheerleader to make sure your export goals fit the values of your company, as well as your product, your services, and your team.
Great. Wonderful. Sounds amazing. So I think you mentioned then if people want to learn more, they should email Rita, and an email is women@exportnavigator.ca, and set up an appointment to speak with Rita to talk about specific situations and answer questions. Export Navigator also has a newsletter. Is that right, Allison?
Yes, thank you for that, Melanie. We have a newsletter. It comes out at the beginning of every month, once a month, talks about export news, also new programs, and it gives updates on our free seminars. So we do about 6 or 7 free seminars and webinars every year. So most recently, they were talking about different funding programs. We did one on free trade agreements. We had a dedicated one about selling to the United States, a dedicated one for service providers, and they will be starting again in January. And the best way to keep up to date on those is to sign up for the newsletter. So go to the website exportnavigator.ca and sign up for the newsletters. And all of our seminars are free. They are hosted in downtown Vancouver at Small Business BC. They are also, like this one, streamed live and recorded. So even if you can't make it that time on that day, sign up and we will send you a link so you can watch the recording. Thank you for remembering that.
Fantastic. Yeah, great. That sounds fantastic, and a great way for people just to start educating themselves about exporting and what's available through Export Navigator. Women's Enterprise Center also has a monthly e-newsletter, which you can sign up for on our website at wec.ca/e-news, and that keeps people informed about our services every month. Well, thank you very much, Rita and Allison. It's been a really informative session on the Export Navigator program and how people can access this wonderful free business coaching program. I want to thank everyone for joining us today, and I hope you found the information in this session useful. We'll follow up with an email with a link to provide feedback on this session, and I hope you'll share your thoughts with us. We're always striving to improve these sessions to meet your needs. Also want to say a couple of things coming up with Women's Enterprise Center. We have our mentoring program open, peer mentoring in a couple of centers, Fernie, Prince George, Terrace, and Kelowna. You can sign up for those peer mentoring groups. It's an application process. The website URL is wec.ca/peer mentoring. We also are taking applications for Taking the Stage leadership training, which is a great program to help women build confidence. And we have those training programs running in Cranbrook, Kamloops, Courtenay, Kelowna, Port McNeill, Prince George, Revelstoke, and Port Alberni. And to sign up for the Taking the Stage Leadership Training, the URL is wec.ca/TTS for Taking the Stage. So there's a limited number of spots in each community. We have 8 spots. So if you're interested in those programs, please apply on the website. So goodbye, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us. I hope you have a wonderful day.